Hey, this is Zachlog the Great, and I am here tonight with my friend Chris.
Hello.
And we are joined tonight by Elaina.
Hello.
And we are getting together to talk about the poem A Litany in Time of Plague by Thomas Nashe. I don't usually try to match my poetry choices to, current events or the news or anything like that. But usually there's more than one thing in the news. And this pretty much is all the news lately, and it's hard not to think about it. So I thought I would, kind of tag along on that myself. Again, as usual, I'll want to remind everyone, if you like my work, if you enjoy what I do, please support me via subscribestar.com/Zachlog-the-great, and there will be a link in the show description. And having said that, I will go ahead and put the poem up, and I will be reading the poem tonight, and then we'll talk about it. So let me see. There we go. Let me know when you guys see that.
Yep.
Okay. A Litany in Time of Plague by Thomas Nashe. Adieu. Farewell, earth's bliss. This world uncertain is. Fond are life's lustful joys. Death proves them all but toys. None from his darts can fly. I am sick. I must die. Lord, have mercy on us. Rich men trust not in wealth. Gold cannot buy you health. Physic himself must fade. All things to end are made. The plague full swift goes by. I am sick. I must die. Lord, have mercy on us. Beauty is but a flower which wrinkles will devour. Brightness falls from the air. Queens have died young and fair. Dust hath closed Helen's eye. I am sick. I must die. Lord, have mercy on us. Strength stoops unto the grave. Worms feed on Hector brave. Swords may not fight with fate. Earth still holds open her gate. Come, come, the bells do cry. I am sick. I must die. Lord, have mercy on us. Wit with his wantonness tasteth death's bitterness. Hell's executioner hath no ears for to hear what vain art can reply. I am sick. I must die. Lord, have mercy on us. Haste therefore each degree to welcome destiny. Heaven is our heritage, earth but a player's stage. Mount we unto the sky. I am sick. I must die. Lord, have mercy on us. Okay. So, I usually, have a drink while I'm doing this. Tonight, I decided to pick something thematic, so I am enjoying a Corona, because I kind of had to. I mean, how could you not do that? So, since I was the reader, Chris, would you like to start us off, and I will enjoy my thematically appropriate drink for a moment?
Yeah, well, I mean, as an initial observation, just talking about how, like, we're all going to die at some point, it's hard to drop a harder truth than that.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of one of the big themes, one of the big questions of life. There's love, death. I don't know what more fundamental. I feel like there's at least one more fundamental, about as fundamental as that, but I don't know what that is off the top of my head. Um, there's a poem I recorded last October, which this reminds me a little bit of. It's Upon the Image of Death by Robert Southwell. And this reminds me a little bit of that, although this one is that one is more general. That one is more just, death is a reality we're all going to have to deal with, and how do you live your life because of that. This one is, well, a lot of us are going to die of this, and what can we do? So, Elaina,
Yes.
what were your first thoughts here?
Who? Well, it was just I really enjoyed the poem just for the timeliness of it, of course. I think my favorite line probably is this world uncertain is. This world uncertain is. And
Yeah, go ahead.
well, I was just saying, like, I'm kind of with what's going on in the world, I'm kind of really tired of hearing these uncertain times. Like, it seems like you can't turn on the TV without, or the radio without hearing in these uncertain times. And I just, like, you don't have to remind us, because things are just not certain. Everything that you really thought was certain, like, I'm gonna, I have a job. I'm gonna take my kids to dancing on Friday, Boy Scouts. We're gonna go to church on Sunday. We have this coming up. That it's all just gone, And then beyond that, realizing that all those things that you felt were so just certain and part of your life, it's the worry and the concern about like, I could get sick, or my family could get sick. So this world uncertain is, it was just it just really struck me. And then I just thought it was beautiful how he kind of broke down the different things that we tend to value in life: wealth and beauty and strength and wit. And it just all kind of fades to nothing, to, like you said, that fundamental truth that we're all sick, we're all going to die, and all we can really do is do it, ask for mercy. Lord, have mercy on us. So I really enjoyed it.
Well, yeah, and the other thing, he's talking. This was written in the time that the Black Death was making its way through Europe, which I have to say, compared to what we have today, like, even at its worst, it would be nowhere near that, because that when that went through Europe, that wiped out about a third of the population, is the usual estimate. And it's really hard to, like, I mean, it's hard to even try to imagine, like, what it would be like watching that happen around you. Watching 1 in 3 people in the matter of 10 or 20 years, 1 in 3 people just gone, and how that changes the world as a whole. Although like I said earlier, we are definitely going to be seeing some changes, and honestly, honestly, in the long term, I think the illness itself is going to be relatively small on that scale. what we've tried to do to adapt to it is going to be, I think, is going to have the longer, consequences.
Mm-hmm.
So, which, with your job, Elaina, you'll probably be seeing some of that.
Yeah.
But, yeah, and the other thing, like Elaina said, it goes through. Okay, there's, death is coming for us. Death is going to take all of us. Okay, so how are we going to deal with this? Wealth, not going to change anything. You can't buy off the Grim Reaper. Youth and beauty. Well, beauty is but a flower which wrinkles will devour. Like, even, if the plague doesn't take you, you're a beautiful young woman. At some point you're going to be a middle-aged. At some point you're going to be an old woman. And like, there's the people who try to avoid that. Like, you see people in Hollywood or politicians. The people who try to avoid that reality generally end up looking worse. Strength, physical strength, courage. Well, I mean, courage is good, and not giving up your honor, and not cowering before the idea that you're going to be dead. But physical strength, it will still come for you. And wit with his wantonness, you're not going to talk your way out of this one. And so all of these things, he goes through, how could we avoid this? You can't. And I don't think you need to, think about this every day. I don't think this needs to be constantly on your mind. But I do think, keeping this in mind every once in a while, that, death is coming. I think it's a good habit, a good mental habit to keep going, keep you focused on things that matter.
Yeah. I don't know about y'all, but this, what we're going through now with the coronavirus, that's definitely made me think about my own mortality more than ever. Can't help but not, when everything is just, it's changed so much. So,
well, and I don't look it. I'm aware. I am told so rather frequently. But I am 40, and I have recently, not going into the details, but I've recently developed some some health problems that is just like, oh yeah, this system is kind of breaking down, and it's a pretty stark reminder of that. And it's and it, like I said, keep knowing that's coming, and trying to be ready for it, trying to face it honorably, and trying to be ready for it is a good mental habit. Chris, what else were you gonna?
I was gonna say, so whenever you're reading the poem, it's very easy to say, oh, well, wealth won't help you, beauty won't help you, strength, intelligence, none of that's gonna help you, and it almost makes it look sort of hopeless. But he's also beating you over the head with the actual solution, which is to accept it as inevitable and trust in the Lord.
Well, and the other another thing with that, because I don't know if this is how it would have been read then, but I think the first thing a lot of people today will see reading this when it says, Lord, have mercy on us. And I think a lot of people today would say, oh, save us from this, don't let us die of this. But, by the time you get to the end, it's like, no, that's not what he's saying at all. Because it's like, we're going to die this, and, whether by this illness or by something else, it's going to happen. And, it's not, Lord, save us from this, this fate of death. It's, Lord, have mercy on us. Lord, forgive us of our sins. Lord, help us to become the kind of people we ought to be so that we can face death without fear.
Right. And I think that's one reason why I like the way he does that. I'm not very familiar with the litany format, but ending each verse with the same "I am sick, I must die, Lord have mercy on us." Like, once you see it the first few times, it almost becomes background. Like, your brain almost sort of like skips over it because, hey, it's going to be there. It's not changing. It's just there. But like, that's where, the actual solution is.
Right.
And that's kind of like life. Like, we realize we're going to die. We get worried about that. So we start trying all sorts of things to avoid that fate, when the answer is right in front of us anytime we care to pay attention to it.
It's kind of funny talking about the refrain there. When my wife was reading through this, she said on the third stanza, she kind of felt like it should be Christ have mercy at that point. Elaina got it. Which, if you're that's the reference to the Catholic liturgy. So
and there's power in the repetition of it. The like Chris said, therein lies the solution.
One thing let's see. I guess it's only the middle two stanzas, but it has the references to specifically the Iliad. Dust hath closed Helen's eye, worms feed on Hector brave. And I doubt it, because I'm sure anyone who watches my videos is very well read and a classical scholar. But if anyone is watching this is not aware, that is Helen of Troy, and Hector, and Hector, who was the great hero of the city of Troy. And so the most famous beauty in the world, and one of the great warriors in the Trojan War, and death came for them both. And by the way, I'm pretty sure I've talked about this with Chris. Elaina, have you ever heard of the term Milla Helen?
No.
Okay, so do you know the phrase, the famous description of Helen of Troy? I think it comes from the play Faust, but I'm not sure about that. But do you know the famous description of Helen of Troy?
Not offhand.
The face that.
Oh yeah.
The face that launched 1,000 ships.
Yes.
Okay, so a Milla Helen is sufficient beauty to launch one ship.
Where does that term come from?
Well, it's Helen, the face that launched 1,000 ships, and then a millimeter is.
Yeah, but
I don't know who came up with it, if that's what you're asking. I don't know. That one's been around for a while.
But it's great as a joke, because she's already what like all beauty after her is measured by. And that's just a more precise measurement.
So,
but yes, now referencing Helen and Hector, like besides just, the good literary quality of it, it also sort of broadens the idea because, I mean, this is in the middle of a plague, but he's also referencing the universality of death in general. So even though the plague, like you might be worried that the plague or whatever, disease or issue might get you, even if you survive that, it's still something you have to deal with.
Well, yeah, because his this is a litany in time of plague, and that's what he's dealing with. But the disaster that Helen and Hector were facing is a decade-long war that left that city in absolute ruins, and so yeah, it's like it might not be a plague. It might not, and it might not be a war, but again, one way or another, it's coming for you, and you can't buy your way out of it. You can't flirt your way out of it. You can't lift your way out of it, and you can't talk your way out of it. And so, what did you guys think of? Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I do think it's interesting that, okay, so it's about death, and he does mention Hector. Was like, okay, Hector, getting killed by Achilles, that's, a main part of the story. But Helen, like, apparently there is, like, myths about how she died, but, like, nobody knows or cares about how she died. She just sort of, like, disappears from the story at the end. Mm-hmm. So I guess part of it is like, okay, for the beauty side, like, I mean, once you get older, like, nobody cares to remember who you are.
Well, and that's I'm going to kind of channel Stefan Molyneux for a little bit, but like in terms of women, physical beauty, kind of the point of that, kind of why we have that is to bring people together and start a family. That's what that's supposed to get you to do, and then once you do that, by the time you are older, and by the time this simple physical beauty that you didn't do anything for, that just kind of came with the package, so to speak, by the time that's gone, there's something else to replace it. There's you're loved, you're held in esteem for something else, because you're a wife, and because you're a mom, and because you have created this family around you. And
which actually does contrast pretty well with Hector, because I mean, yeah, a young guy being physically fit and being able to stand as one of the greatest warriors, like, you're not gonna last that for very long either. I mean, look at how old, like, professional sports players get to be.
Yeah, well, it depends on the sport too. I mean, baseball. Well, anyway, that's going a little. It's getting a little off the point. But yeah, I mean, and like I said, I'm not old at this point, but I'm old enough that I am. I'm starting to see a few things break down, and yeah, and you feel. You feel physical strength leaving you. It's what is the I forget which sonnet it is. It's one, but I'm not sure if you were there for that one, Chris. When 40 winters shall besiege thy brow and dig deep trenches in thy beauty's field. Did you cover that one with me, Chris?
I think I might have.
Okay, but yeah, and so it's it's like I said, it's going to come, quickly or slowly. These things that we value are going to wear away. And what did you guys think of the last stanza, by the way?
I love that he ended it on a hopeful note. Heaven is our heritage. Like, even though this is all rather depressing to think about, that death will come for us all. It's not really what we're meant for. Our souls are eternal. Heaven is our heritage. We're ultimately going to be. We're going to ultimately conquer death. In that way, but this is it's just it's good to remember. It's good to remember that I guess our physical bodies are just they are wearing away, but what's internal, our souls, it's eternal. So that's it.
Yeah, it definitely does. It's kind of weird because at the same time it does end on a hopeful note in terms of that stanza, but then it still has that refrain: "I am sick, I must die. Lord have mercy on us."
Yeah, so we're still ultimately at His mercy. Even.
But yeah, mount we unto the sky. One thing that does kind of bother me a tiny little bit, and I wouldn't say this is a major thing, but Earth but a player's stage. And yes and no. It's not like this life and what we do here is nothing, is meaningless. But it's because in some sense this is kind of where we choose our eternal fates. Our choices here will determine all of that. And so it's not like our life here isn't a game. We shouldn't treat it lightly. At the same time, our life here isn't all there is. And it's a hard thing to balance, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. I think that line is a little more maybe flippant than it needs to be. Like, it could have been said a little differently.
At the same time, though, I just realized, like I said earlier, in the context this was written, like, in a matter of decades, 10 years or so, like a third of the whole population of Europe is gone. Like, that's gonna change how you look at things around you, and so I kind of see where that kind of attitude could be a little more, could make a little more sense in that context. Chris, what about you? What about that last stanza?
Well, the thought that I just had is, okay, the sort of like balance of the poem overall, and you can tell me if you think there might be something to this, but it's like in the first stanza, he's looking at death in a very pessimistic view. In the last stanza, it's optimistic. And then with the middle two, like you're presented with both sort of like the primary feminine beauty, feminine like virtue, and sort of like the primary like masculine virtue. And then for like the second, it's sort of like a strength, like something you have that is very external. And then the penultimate, it's a strength or a virtue that you have that's very internal. So there's sort of a balance to the poem as a whole. Do you see that, or am I just kind of grasping at straws there?
Yeah, I kind of see what you're talking about. Also, one thing I thought you might one thing about the middle of the poem. Come, come, the bells do cry, and like, okay, hi Edgar Allan Poe, how you doing?
I thought that too.
Have you? That was actually a poem Chris suggested for me that I covered for this channel. Do you know Elaina? Are you familiar with the bells?
Yeah.
Okay.
I actually watched that one that y'all did.
So yeah, that one's that one is that one's a ride. That one goes all over the place. But requires, if you want to do that one justice, that definitely requires some energy to do that, to read that well also. Well, let me see. I don't know. I think I covered most of the things I wanted to say here. Chris, was there anything else you wanted to put in on this one?
I don't think so. And you see, I do find it kind of interesting because this poem, like, it has a certain sort of bluntness. Like, it says what it wants to say, and it does it in like a very good way. But like, I feel like it's pretty like straight to the point. There's a pretty like obvious interpretation to most of it. So I feel like there's not as much to say besides, what he already says and what we already sort of discussed.
Yeah, I mean, there's I've seen that with a few of the poems we've done. There's ones that are more complex. There's ones you can dig into a lot more, and there's ones where, like, well, it's all laid out here, and so yeah, this one's relatively straightforward.
Yeah, too much ambiguity would just rob it of its entire meaning. Like, the whole point is you cannot avoid death.
Yeah, and so it's yeah, and like, okay, be ready for this, guys. In fact, again, like I said, live your life in such a way that when it comes, you can welcome it. So, Elaina, did you have anything else you wanted to cover on this one?
No, I think that's about it. Other than, I guess I would say, considering not only the poem, but what we're all going through right now, is that maybe a takeaway is just to keep our eyes focused on Christ, because ultimately none of this is going to conquer him, and as difficult as it may be for people, for all of us going through this, especially people who are ill or lost loved ones, our hope is an eternal one. And so I would just say, don't lose hope, don't lose strength, because ultimately we'll have the victory.
Okay. Well, thank you guys for joining me tonight, and we will close out. Good night. God be with you.
Have a good one.
Thank you.